Hello and welcome to today's European SharePoint Office 365 and Azure Community webinar. My name is Shane and I'm delighted to be joined by Christian Bauer, who will be talking to you about secure document generation in the cloud with dox42 and Azure AD, in the name of love or in the name of the user. Remember to join in the conversation about today's webinar on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @EuropeanSP and our hashtag is ESPC18. After the webinar, we will have a questions and answers session. Type any questions you have for Christian in the question window. Some questions will be selected and answered at the end of the presentation. This webinar will be recorded and you will be notified by email when it is available. And now I'm going to pass you over to our webinar presenter, Christian Bauer. Hello, Christian.
Hello. So, okay, now you should be able to see my screen. Hello, everybody. Welcome from my side. This is Christian Bauer from dox42. First of all, I would give an overview what I've prepared for you today. So, I would try to show you what we want to achieve when it comes to secure document generation in the cloud using dox42 and Azure Active Directory. I will show that in a live demo, and then I give you an overview of authentication methods of third-party web services. Because dox42 is a third-party web service, we need to secure. We will do that using Azure Active Directory. I will give an overview of the principles and how to configure Azure Active Directory, and then I put it all together in a live demo, how to secure a third-party web service with Azure Active Directory and SharePoint Online, and then we'll have a short look of Dynamics 365 as well. As a roundup, I will provide a short overview of dox42 so that you can have two benefits in this webinar. First of all, you will learn about Azure Active Directory and how to secure third-party web services. And secondly, you will get an overview of dox42 and the options you have when it comes to secure document generation in the cloud. And finally, as Shane introduced, we will have a Q&A and answer your questions at the end of the webinar. Okay. Yeah, here we go. What we want to achieve. We want to generate documents. So let's go to a SharePoint list where we have images of our employees. And we want to generate an employee list as a PDF, for example. For that, we extended our SharePoint ribbon to generate an employee list. So what that button here does is it calls a dox42 service, a REST service, and passing a request to this web service to generate a document based on this SharePoint list and return it as a PDF. So we already done. We'll have a look at that. Here we have a list of our employees, and what you see is the images of the employees are integrated in this document. You see a progress bar that visualizes the achievement. It's sorted. You have a barcode representing the email. So a very nice looking document right out of SharePoint. I show you a second scenario. We change to our employee contracts. Again, we do have employees here, but now we don't want to generate a list. We want to generate contracts. For that, we integrated in the context menu a few commands. One is generate contract with dox42. So pretty much the same thing happens here. The dox42 server is called to generate a contract for, in that case, Michaela Mitarbeiter. So that's the contract. Okay. You get a table of content here. You see that the name of Michaela Mitarbeiter is here and some other things. Yeah. Okay. The next, what we want to achieve, we want that this document generation is really impersonated. So it should be executed as Christian Bauer because I'm logged in here as Christian Bauer. To show that, we will generate this contract again and save it to a SharePoint library. So I click here, Save Contract, and Save to Target Library. So the dox42 server via REST service is called again, generates this contract, and saves it to a SharePoint library, this target lib here. We have a look at it. Sort that here, okay. Then we see contract of Michaela Mitarbeiter a few seconds ago generated, and that's the important thing, by Christian Bauer. So the dox42 server, which is an external, it's not part of SharePoint, it does not run in the SharePoint context. It's called from Office 365. Yeah, it runs on some Azure server. It works on my behalf, in my name, okay. We changed to see that a bit in more detail. We changed to a different browser window. And in that browser window, I'm logged in as Selina Bentley. Okay. Yeah, she's definitely more pretty than me. Okay. But unfortunately, she's not a real person. She's just a demo identity. But as far as this browser window and this session here is concerned, I am Selina Bentley. And being Selina, I do pretty much the same thing as I did before. I go to Max Manager and say Save Contract to Target Library. So again, dox42 server is called in the name of Selina Bentley, generates the contract, and puts it to the target library. We change to this library here, sorting the modified date. And here is the contract of Max Manager, generated by Selina Bentley. Okay, you can open that document here so that you see, okay, that's the employee contract of Max Manager. Okay. But the important thing is that it is impersonated by Selina Bentley. We have a look at the document template that was used to generate these contracts, because dox42 uses Word documents as templates. So here is the employee contract, and we open that in Word. Okay, here it is. It's a Word document. We are here in Microsoft Word. Okay. But we open the dox42 add-in. The dox42 add-in is used to design document templates in Microsoft Office to be used to generate these contracts or other documents. Okay, what you can see here, that there are a lot of data fields, just one, and there are a few more in this document template. The title, phone, email, the position she's applying for, and so on. Some text, you can even change it here. There are some conditional sections. You can have conditions. So laptops are provided to every employee as long as they are not trainees, and mobile phones are only for sales managers. Okay, you might like it or not, but okay, this is the logic of this document. And the important thing is, to generate the document, we need to set up a connection to SharePoint. You see these connections here in the Data Field Explorer. You see the candidates data source and a remuneration policy data source. You can even generate this document here locally. And to do so, we need to sign in with our Microsoft account. So I need to sign in with my Microsoft account. Okay. Office 365 account. So my Office 365 account is used to access SharePoint and read data from SharePoint. You see here this Michaela Mitarbeiter, Max Manager, and Bodo Botschafter. We go for Max Manager again and generate the contract locally out of Word with the dox42 add-in. So there is no dox42 server involved here, but we generate this contract locally. You see this exactly the same document we have generated before as a PDF out of SharePoint. Now it's a Word generated locally in Word. Okay. To set up these data connections, we use the dox42 Data Map Designer. And in this Data Map Designer, we have the option to connect to a lot of data sources like SQL databases, Excel, web services, SharePoint. That's the most important for us today. XML and JSON, Word, we have a crypto data source to encrypt credentials, and we will access the CRM, Microsoft Dynamics CRM. We can access AX, SAP, and a lot more systems. But let's have a look at one of these data sources, the All Candidates data source. We connect to our SharePoint here. Okay, successfully, nice. We select our employee contracts list. And then we can even test this data source here and see if we can read the employee's data. And you see, we can. Michael, Mitarbeiter, Bodo, Botschafter, Max, Manager. Normally, you would probably use a username and password to connect to SharePoint, but as you can see, username and password is empty. So we do not use a service user here because when I generated the document before, you saw that I had to log in with my Office 365 account. And there is a configuration tab where you can connect to Azure Active Directory for Office 365. That looks a bit cryptic at the moment. We will come to that later and explain that in more detail how that works. Okay, but at the moment we see that it connects to Azure Active Directory and uses my Office 365, my Azure Active Directory account to impersonate and read data from SharePoint. And not only SharePoint, we will see that that works with Dynamics 365 as well. Okay, so this is basically what we want to achieve. We want to generate contracts or other documents. We want to impersonate, and we want to do that from the dox42 Office add-ins locally on my premises. And we want to use the dox42 server from SharePoint or other applications to generate documents. And we do not want to sign in again for the dox42 server. We want to use our Office 365 account and have the dox42 server impersonating on behalf of my account. Okay, a short overview of authentication methods for third-party web services. You have basically three ways to go. The first is in the name of love, anonymous authentication. This is obviously not what we are using here. And it is only good if you go with almost no security requirements. This is okay if you have a web service, for example, does only transformation. You send form data there and got back a PDF, okay? Or you have data you want to make available publicly. A news feed, for example, you can think about that, or a weather web service or something like that. But if you stay with the weather web service, as soon as more and more people are going to use your weather web service, you would probably like to charge for that. So then you need a means to identify your customers. Probably it's not necessary that you know exactly which user working for your customer is calling the web service, but you want to identify your customers because you want to bill him. So then you need something like an application key, a service account. This is okay for modest security requirements. You can identify a customer, an organization calling your web service, but not the exact user. You can use that to call third-party web services from SharePoint as well, as long as you can ensure that nobody else is able to call your web service. If you can ensure that only from your SharePoint the web service can be called, then you can rely on permission management of your SharePoint or Dynamics 365 or whatever. On-prem, you have a very, very simple and effective way to ensure that. You have your SharePoint on premises, you have your web service on premises. If you call your web services, for example, from a workflow, then the call is done by your SharePoint server, and you can go with IP restriction. That way you can ensure that only your SharePoint server is able to call your web service. Then you can rely on permission management by your SharePoint. But as soon as you are in the cloud, that's no longer possible because you don't know the IP of the SharePoint server calling you. So there's no other way than to expose your web service on the internet. And of course, what we did here to click a button on the browser. Also, this does not work with IP restriction. So you need a way to impersonate your user. Okay, now we're here with impersonation. This warrants high security requirements because you have full user ID, you can group control everything. And there are some methods to do that on premises, Windows accounts in the first place, then Kerberos, Active Directory, Federation Services, and SharePoint add-ins. The ones who had worked with Kerberos and Active Directory Federation Services probably know that this is not exactly trivial to set that up. Good news for you in the cloud, there are, unfortunately, less options. SharePoint add-ins, which are really limited in functionality, as long as they are browser hosted, SharePoint hosted. And then, and that's the good news, there is Azure Active Directory. And we will focus on that one in this webinar. Azure Active Directory is Microsoft's multi-tenant cloud-based directory and identity management service. And it combines a lot of things: directory services, identity governance, and that's the for us important thing, application access management. Not only for Microsoft Cloud applications, but as well as your applications. You can integrate with Azure Active Directory and manage the access to your personal applications. And that's exactly what we did for dox42. So Azure Active Directory provides a mean to have a single sign-on for Microsoft Cloud applications and your applications. And the good news, it's not too complicated to set it up. I will show you that during this webinar. So when it comes to securing a third-party web service, think about the web service is the client, and basically it works with a token authentication mechanism. I'll come to that in more detail later. But the good thing is you have user management, application management, and permission management in Azure Active Directory, so in one place. What I'm going to show you in a more extensive live demo right now is how we secure the dox42 add-ins, the client, on locally on your machine, and the dox42 server somewhere in the cloud, using Azure Active Directory to access Microsoft Cloud applications like SharePoint Online, Office 365, and Dynamics 365. Let's have a closer look at that. We saw that we could generate contracts, for example, right out of SharePoint Online and save them automatically via web services to a target library. And the web services and the web service, dox42 web service, was able to impersonate and work on behalf of Selina Bentley and on behalf of me, Christian Bauer. So how to set it up? We saw already that we use Word templates for these documents, and we have a data connection, a data mapper, the dox42 data map designer, to connect to SharePoint. Have a look at this SharePoint data source in more detail. We could set up username and password, which we didn't. We connected to Azure Active Directory here. So let's have a look at this dialog in more detail. At the first glance, it looks a bit cryptic, but actually it isn't. Because what are you using here? You need an Office 365 or Dynamics 365 URL. This is your authority. So in our case, that's dox42-sharepoint.com. Okay? Then we need our Azure tenant, and then we have our application IDs for the add-ins and for the server. What looks a bit cryptic is that there is some less and greater signs and percentages and something like that. Why is that the case? Because we read this data from another dox42 data source. We use that as a connection file. I'll show you that. It's here. And that's simply a connection Excel. We keep this connection data in an Excel. We use this as a configuration file. We open that Excel in a moment. I'll show you. Okay, so what's the data we use here? First of all, the site we want to connect to. Then we have a Dynamics 365 URL. A bit more. So zoom in a bit. We have an Office 365 URL for SharePoint.com. We have the UID of our Azure tenant. Application IDs, show you that in a bit more, and redirect URLs. Okay, and finally, for the server, there is a client key. It's encrypted here, so I can show you that because this is the only the encryption of the client key. It's not the actual client key. So that's the information we need to connect to Azure Active Directory. Okay, that's exactly the information here. Our application ID, redirect URLs, client key, Azure tenant, and our Office 365 or Dynamics 365 URL. Now, where can we get this tenant and this application IDs? Where we can get them from? Well, we can register them in the Office Admin Center. We go to Office 365, the Admin Center. If you don't find it, you can just open here and you go to Admin, okay? That brings you right to the Office 365 Admin Center. We open the Admin Centers here and see there is Azure Active Directory. That's the one place you can manage your users, your applications, and basically everything. What is most interesting for us is the app registrations, because yeah, we have two apps we want to register, the dox42 add-ins and the dox42 server. Here we go, dox42 Azure server, dox42 add-in. Okay, we registered these apps here in the app registrations. Okay, first you see that there is a difference between the type of application. The server is a web API and the add-ins are a native application. The difference is a native application is able to fire up a login box. When we generated our document with the dox42 add-in, we were prompted. I was prompted to enter my Office 365 credentials. This is nice with a native app, but not way to go when we're talking about a web API, because we want to have single sign-on. We do not want this web API to pop up a login box. Second, there is the application ID. Okay, this is exactly the application IDs we entered in the configuration Office 365 Azure Active Directory configuration box in our dox42 add-in in the data source. Here we get them from. Then we need to collect the ID of our tenant. We click on our endpoints. We copy any of these endpoints. We put them in an editor. You can see what's written here. This is the ID of our tenant. Okay, so you can get the ID of your tenant from the endpoints. Okay. What else can we configure here? When we click on the server, we see again the application ID, and then we can go to the settings. And what's interesting here is you have some properties. Here you can configure the required permissions. And that's interesting because we granted the permission to access SharePoint Online, of course, and we granted as well the permission to access Dynamics CRM, Dynamics 365 for Sales, that's CRM Online, here, as a delegated permission. That means this server should be able to impersonate an identity against SharePoint Online and Dynamics 365 CRM. Okay, of course we did the same thing for the add-in. Then there's one more thing, the keys. As the server needs to identify against Azure Active Directory some way that I'm this app, you can register a key. Okay, that's the client key. We have this client. You saw this client key before in our configuration Excel in an encrypted way, and we have some client keys registered here. If you register a key here, it will show up in the value here, and be sure to copy it immediately because it is hidden afterwards. The only thing you can do with a key as soon as you created it is delete it. Okay? So you have no way to retrieve this key again. It is once created, you need to copy it, encrypt it, put it in your app, and then you're nice. So that's the way we configure, we register our apps in Azure Active Directory. Now there is one more thing. When we generate, I go back to my employee contract. When we generate the contract, some magic must happen that the dox42 server knows about this call coming from Christian Bauer and getting a grant to read data from SharePoint as Christian Bauer. So how does that work? And Microsoft provided a part of JavaScript. So it's actually not Microsoft, it's an open source library. It's called ADAL. But go through that step by step. We have the dox42 add-ins, the client, dox42 server. As soon as the user wants to generate the document from the add-in, a login box pops up. You can enter your Azure Active Directory credentials. Azure Active Directory provides a token, and you can access data with the token from the native app. So that's pretty straightforward. On the server, it's a bit more complicated. If you want to call the dox42 server from your SharePoint, then this adl.js, this is a JavaScript library, offers you some functionality to connect to Azure Active Directory and get an authentication token. And you pass that authentication token to the REST service, to the dox42 server. The dox42 server takes that authentication token and passes that in a call to the Azure Active Directory along with the client key. So the important thing is the client key is never put on a SharePoint. Okay, the client key rests in Azure Active Directory and in the dox42 server only. But together with this token, it's proven that the identity is it's an Office 365 identity, and the dox42 server is the registered app. With that proof, Azure Active Directory issues another token to the dox42 server, and with that token, dox42 server can log in Office 365 SharePoint Dynamics 365 according to the permissions I had configured in Azure Active Directory Admin Console and read data from there. And the beauty is this doesn't only work with SharePoint Online, it works with Dynamics 365 and any other Microsoft Cloud application as well. So I have configured a little button here, and we want to download a document from Dynamics 365. So we want to access data from Dynamics 365. And we use our login, our SharePoint Online login here. So that's the list of accounts in our CRM Online. There is one that intrigues me, the Solar Power Deluxe. Let's copy that one and see if we can find our Solar Power Deluxe in our Dynamics 365 for sales. Let's see if we can find that here. Okay, let's search for it. Okay, it wasn't loaded properly. Maybe yeah, now it will work. So, okay. Yeah, here it is, Solar Power Deluxe. And you see even the image, the solar flower. was loaded from CRM, and there is the sunny street and everything. And yeah, there is even a quote, because this Solar Power Deluxe issued a quote in Dynamics 365 for sales, for solar panels and the panel holder, the battery and stuff like that. And again, we can call dox42 server to generate documents. Now we call it from Dynamics 365. And we want to create a quote for that. Okay. And again, we can use the same principle, the same Azure Active Directory login, in that case, to read data from Dynamics 365 for sales and to read data from SharePoint Online. Because while this document is generated, I'll take you to another SharePoint document library, the quote modules. And we will see there is a lot of documents here. And one is Sun Power Deluxe. We open that one. And you see this is a description in Word Online with stating the average hours of sunshine and an image how the solar power station will be installed in the house and something like that. And if you have a look at the quote, then you see this Word document was integrated in the formal quote. So this quote, this PDF here, had integrated the sunflower, the address of Solar Power Deluxe, the address of the customer, all data from Dynamics 365, and a Word document from SharePoint Online. And then, of course, the products that are offered, solar power panel holder battery, including the images of these products, and some more information like a PowerPoint presentation and so on. Okay, so you can use Azure Active Directory to access data across application boundaries. It's not necessary to migrate data from one application to the other, but dox42 can access this data at the time of generation of the document. Okay. This is exactly what we wanted to achieve. Let's step to that again very fast. Okay. Native app, prompt for Office 365 user, access token, call from SharePoint or Dynamics 365, have this adult.js, getting an access token, proof with this access token and the client key. Yes, I'm the dox42 server, and this is the Office 365 identity, and access data with that. When our customers and partners who use the dox42 server, we delivered here's some JavaScript magic. We deliver an interface which is very, very easy to implement. So you don't have to write some JavaScript code for that. We did that already, and there is a documentation. You can just it's to implement a call like that in SharePoint. Let's go here again, the employee list. To configure your button or to configure a call like that where you can get your employees or your contracts, that's a matter of minutes. It's absolutely easy to do. Okay, with that, I will go to the next step and give you a short overview of dox42 so that you can see what you can do with dox42, and then we go to the Q&A. So, you have already seen that dox42 is for automating documents. I may introduce you to 3 people that you will find in your company as well: Ego IT, Marketer Marketing, and Bertrand Business User. They might go by different names in your company, but they have different ideas and different competences when it comes to document automation. IT thinks about Azure Active Directory and integrating other data, other systems. And marketing thinks about corporate design, and business users know about the process and the content in documents. As dox42 can use Microsoft Office as a templating engine and connect without programming to any data source, Marketer and Bertrand are able to design their documents on their own, working together with IT, of course. But it enables the business users to become what is frequently called citizen developers. So, and that makes it extremely flexible, powerful, and intuitive to use. Some information about the company of dox42. We are Microsoft Gold Certified Partner, of course. We are situated in Vienna, in the middle of Europe. We are a software product company working together with a vast partner network, and it's generating documents from SharePoint and all other systems, where these documents can be quite complex. So we cannot only integrate data from various sources. You can have as many data sources as you like. You can integrate images, tables, dynamic diagrams from Excel, for example. Maybe you remember this progress bars in the employee list just at the beginning of the webinar. This was actually an Excel chart automated with dox42, and then barcodes, text modules. You see a selection of several customers who gave references for dox42, and some of which you might know. Of course, we will be at the European SharePoint conference. We will be sponsored there, and if you come there, we will be happy to talk to you. Come to our booth. If you can't wait that long, we will also be at the European Collaboration Summit in Mainz in 2 weeks. We will also be sponsored there. Okay, you've already seen that dox42 uses Microsoft Office for template design. That makes it very easy to design templates. You can integrate these blue fields via drag and drop from various data sources from SharePoint and any other system. You configure the data connections in the data map designer. You don't have to program that. It's just a configuration. And then you drag and drop your data fields in the document, and then you can control sections of the document. You can integrate whole other documents, Word documents, we sorted in the quote, based on conditions, having some text module logic, and so on. You can go quite far there. We have customers who realize documents that are hundreds of pages and consisting of dynamic text modules and like 50 data sources and so on. So you're not very limited here. And as I mentioned, data might be read off different systems like SQL databases, web services, Excel, of course, SharePoint. And yes, of course, it works on-prem as well, of course, SharePoint Online and SharePoint on-prem, XML, JSON, SAP. If you do have an SAP system sitting somewhere, you can integrate it. Then the whole Dynamics 365 world, so that means Navision, AX, of course, CRM, and this works in the cloud and on-prem exactly the same. And you can even extend dox42. And what is one of the really nice things is you can mix data. We saw that. We started to generate a quote from Microsoft Dynamics, integrating documents from SharePoint Online. And we started to generate a document from SharePoint Online, integrating data from CRM Online. So you can mix data. And you can generate data documents in various output formats, Office formats in the first place, and then PDF, PDFA. You can save documents automatically to SharePoint, generate mails, connect them to DocuSign for digital signature, sending them to a printer, and much more. Okay, and this is as far as it goes. We are almost done. There's only the Q&A left, and that's the point where I would like to transfer back to Shane. Thanks a lot. For the Q&A.
Thanks, Christian, for a great presentation. Yeah, we will have questions and answers now, and if anyone would like to ask a question, now is the time to do so. Okay, Christian, so first question, is dox42 also able to send generated documents via email? That could be very useful for workflows.
Yes, absolutely. dox42 provides the dox42 server provides an email action. This is a way the dox42 server can be called. So you can use a template, a Word template for the email and a Word template for the document. So both are generated in one step. So you have a completely dynamically generated, individualized email. Also, you can integrate hyperlinks there. You can integrate images, barcodes, whatever you need. And of course, they generate the document. You can even do that in draft mode, so that you can generate a draft email. You can edit this email afterward before sending it, but you don't have to write it. It's generated for you.
Okay. Can dox42 integrate dynamic Excel charts and calculations in documents?
Yes, it can. Actually, we saw that when we generated this employee list. We have a progress. I do that for you, John, once more. We can see it again. We go to employee list. So, and here we go. Download complete. Here it is. There's a progress bar that is used to visualize the achievement of these employees, and this is actually an Excel chart. It's a stacked bar chart. So you can use Excel functionality as a chart and Excel formulas as well. So you can automate Excel formulas and all the whatever you can use with you can model. Every logic you can model with Excel formulas you can use in the document generation process.
Okay. And next question, we use SharePoint on-prem. Can we still use dox42?
Yeah, sure. dox42 works with SharePoint on-prem, and it works with SharePoint Online. When you're using SharePoint on-prem, you can unfortunately not use Azure Active Directory, but you can use other means of authentication. You have other options there, but the way to connect to SharePoint is exactly the same if you work with SharePoint on-prem or SharePoint Online. And this might be an interesting point for customers who consider to move from SharePoint on-prem to SharePoint Online, because if you model your templates with dox42, then to switch from one to the other is basically just a mouse click. So yeah, here you can just say, okay, I want to go to SharePoint Online. That's it. Everything else is the same.
Super. Christian, thank you so much for your time today. Very much appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. It was an honor to me.
Great. Thank you, Christian. Okay, everybody, that is it for today. Finally, again, thank you to Christian Bauer for his webinar today. See SharePointEurope.com. Sorry, one sec. I'll just... one moment. Just have a technical difficulty here. Just changing back. Okay, great. Thank you all for today. See SharePointEurope.com/register-for-webinars for further details on all upcoming webinars. Thank you all for attending today and have a great day.